ever felt frustrated and helpless after listening and doing everything your vet told you to do, but it only made your sick pet worse and not get any better? That's me in 2008 with my first adopted cat, Meow. I did everything the vet told me to do, and I realized she wasn't getting any better and only worse. So I decided to look into alternative health options and was drawn to the stories of holistic pet service entrepreneurs and their transformative journey, overcoming obstacles, chasing their passion, and creating a movement that has caused a ripple effect of positive change in the lives of their clients and pets around the world. Join me as I share the raw, inspiring journeys of these amazing entrepreneurs, their successes and failures. My name is Amrit Wang, and this is the Raw Entrepreneur. Who is Joanne Bracken, please?
What a good question. I'm not sure how to answer that. That's a deep question, and I think it's one that we all get hung up on because we can talk about what we do, but to talk about who we are is different. But basically, as I see myself, I am a spiritual being, like we all are, who is completely passionate about spiritual growth and assisting other people with their spiritual growth, letting go of what's in the way so that we can all come to a place of more peace and enjoyment with our lives. So I'm a healer, of course, that's what I do, but that's me at my core. I've always known that I would be a healer. So there's that, whatever that program is in my soul, it's all about being a healing channel, expressing that in my own unique way in the world. And because I have a music background, it's all about using my voice. So I used to sing quite a lot and just did a lot of different types of things like operetta and church music and different community groups, choruses, and American musical comedy, things like that. And that was my life back then, before I had my real spiritual awakening, I guess you could say. But what's fun now is that I get to use my voice in my healing work. It's come together. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, I think.
So, how old were you when you sort of first had an inkling that you were slightly different, or you had this special gift?
Oh, I think always, well, I knew when I was a little girl, probably I'm thinking of a picture of me at Halloween, and my costume was a nurse. And I was 5, I think. I was 5 years old. I knew from back then that I wanted to be a nurse, or I thought I did, but that was the only picture I had of what girls did, as healing forces in the world. I didn't know that we could do anything other than be a nurse. So, and as far as feeling different, I always felt like I was a little different because I would talk about things in school that nobody else would talk about, like ghosts, spirits, healing with herbs. I read my first book on reincarnation when I was 16, and I just devoured it. I could not put it down. And lo and behold, that's what so much of my practice is about, is working with past lives, other life expressions that we've had. So I think there were some kids in the class who probably thought I was a little strange because I was so much more interested in things that they thought were really weird, and I was raised Catholic, and you weren't supposed to think of anything that was outside the teachings of the Catholic Church. Like they told us that Ouija boards were of the devil. Well, I couldn't wait to get my hands on one. Just tell me it's of the devil and you're not supposed to ever touch it. It was like, whoa, I have to get one of those. Must be fun. So of course I ended up with one in when I was about 21. Um, so anyway, starting way back to the time I was 5. That's the short answer.
And well, you said you grew up in a Catholic family. So how did your parents, your family members, um, react or respond to you, this little child that you were?
I don't think they paid a whole lot of attention. I don't have a lot of memory about what happened back when I was a child. And a lot of that has to do with family trauma, and just putting that ugly stuff in a box somewhere and not touching it. But I think they didn't really talk about it a whole lot. I remember my mother used to say, "Oh, that's just your imagination," or "You're so sensitive." I think she would listen, but not really. It wasn't encouraged. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So there really wasn't any discussion.
Mm.
The only
I
person in my family who would discuss different things with me was my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother. I was very close to her, and she and I would have conversations about tarot card readers and psychics. She was very interested in it, but she didn't have anybody else, I don't think, that she really talked to about that. And her knowledge of it was very, very limited. But for me, that was exciting because she was the only person in my whole family that I could somewhat relate to about something out of the ordinary box that I lived in. Now, being raised Catholic, it was a very mystical faith. And I used to read about the lives of the saints all the time. I was so into it. I wanted to be the bride of Christ so badly. That was probably a throwback to other lifetimes when I was a nun. But I was 7 years old and getting ready for my first Holy Communion. And I felt in myself that this was going to be a mystical, really holy experience of union with the Christ energy, who, of course, I identified as Jesus. So I would say I was, that shows you the mystical being that I was, even that far back at 7. And I was pretty alone in that. I really was. There was nobody I could share that with.
So, being the spiritual misfit that you were in your family, as you were growing up, um, because you said, you know, you thought you wanted to be a nurse because that's the only way you could, think about helping. Where, as you got older, um, did you have when did you start to have more clarity in the direction that you were going?
Okay, so I actually kept that dream of becoming a nurse until I was about 16, and I volunteered at a local hospital as what we called a candy striper. I don't know if you have that where you are, but candy stripers were teenage girls who would volunteer. And we had little blue pinstriped uniforms, a little cap, you know. And that I did that intentionally because I wanted to see if a hospital was really where I wanted to be. And I discovered that it was not. So that was a turning point because that told me that what I thought was right for me in taking nurses training was just not the fit. But I knew I wanted to be a healer. I just didn't know how else. I didn't know what that was. If you're not a nurse, because I wasn't really good at science, and you have to have a bent in the sciences to get through nursing school. So I didn't have that. My talents are in English and literature and music and the arts, that sort of thing. So it wasn't until uh, really in my late 20s, early 30s when I discovered that there was a whole field of mystical study and learning about how to heal with your hands. And I was awakened to this whole new world. I was just walking down a street one day, taking my normal walk at lunchtime during my job day. And I've probably been down that street many times before, but all of a sudden I saw this bookshop, a mystical bookstore with gifts and, of course, books and crystals. And I was like, oh my gosh, they have stores for this? I'd never seen such a thing. So, of course, I went in and started buying things, and I took every class I could possibly take. It was just like I was hungry for this, and I just soaked it up. And I got to the point where I was giving readings at the store, which was really fun. So I was in this whole new world in my early 30s. And it was a great time for that because there was this kind of explosion of interest, I think, in the mystical arts, because little bookstores and study centers were popping up all around. And it was like a big smorgasbord of treats, spiritual treats. And so that was when I was really kind of thrown into, or the door opened by spirit. It was opened like, come on in, here's a whole world that you want to discover in here. And so I just started taking all these healing classes and practicing. And it wasn't like an explosive awakening. Some people have awakenings where it's instantaneous, just suddenly they wake up. That is not my way. Mine has been very measured and even. Maybe you could even say slow, but I think just measured. It's been the slow boat rather than the like the rocket taking off. But it's been just so much fun. It's an exciting thing to start this spiritual journey. It is for me. It has been the most rewarding thing in the world. So did I answer your question?
I think so. For the benefit of our listeners, could you put a chronological timeline for this, like which sort of year, like was it the 60s or the 70s?
Okay. Well, I was born in 1952. So it was the early 1980s when I first discovered the bookstore, the great bookstore and study center, and really dove into the mystical arts. And then within, I would say, 2 years of that, I started giving readings and doing healing work with people. So by the mid 1980s, I was up and running.
Wow. Wow. That's very cool. Did you ever, as you were getting your, as you call it, your slow awakening and just being a sponge and soaking in all that you could learn, did you ever um, waver or doubt, like is this a career path for you, or was it an interest for you? Because you had your career, your day job kind of thing, and you're
The
learning
day
this.
job.
Yeah. So
My
when
jobs during the day were office jobs, and they were always just a way to make the rent and to support myself. Before 19 before the mid 1980s, I was very involved in singing and performing. And so I had the day job that paid the rent. And then after 5 o'clock, I was off to rehearsals, doing performances, my whole world. That was my passion. And it was just so much fun. And then when I started to shift more away from that, which I never thought I would do, but there was another calling, I just traded the music and the theater for the healing and the psychic development, you could say. So I kept the day job always. That was my base, which was good because that supported me. The healing work has not yet fully supported me enough, but now I've retired from the day job. I've been retired for almost 3 years. And so I have retirement money and Social Security and all that. So again, I have my baseline, and whatever I earn from my sessions supplements that. So while my music and healing work have always been my passion, they haven't been the main moneymaker. But it's been okay. It's been okay. Because I actually need a lot of stimulation and interest in my life, and I get bored very easily. So I thought it probably wouldn't be a good thing for me to sit home alone and just do private sessions. I don't think that would be good for me. I need to be around people and have friends that we don't talk about spirituality with, and just be funny. Some of my best friends at my jobs have been people that I don't socialize with after work, but we have so much fun. And so that has fed this other side of me, and then that's opened up plenty of space for me to enjoy evenings and weekends doing what I'm truly in love with.
Wow. You know, you you've come across as a very calm, very collected person. Like you know exactly who you are. You know what works for you and what doesn't. And I admire that because honestly, myself included, not many people I know actually are conscious enough of who they are and what how they work. Like everyone has your, like you were saying, your attention span. There is a limit to it, and you get bored easily. You need to have stimulation. You just want to have friends out of the mystical world as well, so that you can pour your heart into that. Not many people are honest enough about what they need to
Mm-hmm.
to live, to thrive. But you sound like you sort of worked it out. And was this natural for you, or did it come naturally for you, or did you struggle with this?
Well, remember how old I am now. I am now 69 years old, which
You don't look it.
still
You look
does
amazing.
not, it doesn't register in my brain at all that I'm that old. um, so my life has been very tumultuous, I would say. It has not been an easy ride by any means. I came from a very abusive background, typical story, nothing unusual, alcoholic, abusive father, all that kind of stuff. Very, very difficult. Um, but what that experience provided to me, I believe, is an understanding of and compassion for other people who have suffered the same thing. I can understand the many women that I've had come to me for 30 years with a similar background. And they always have said, gosh, I look at you and I would never believe that that ever happened to you. Well, it's because I've worked on my stuff. I have done tremendous self-healing and worked with different therapists and done tons of body work. And then I've taken all these spiritual healing classes where in the class, you work with each other, you have to practice. And so, yes, I have done a lot of work on myself. And I also believe, too, that there's something in me that is very strong. I believe that my soul has led me through all of this, and with the help of my guides and angels, um, to give me the strength that I needed to walk through the bad years, and so I think it's just a matter of being my age and having, I mean, I've been working consistently on myself really for 40 years. That's a lot of money. That was a lot of money. um,
But that's a
but
lot of consistent work. I mean, that's a lot of grit to,
it is.
determination because you really wanted to heal yourself.
Yeah. And I still work on stuff. We're never done. We're never done. We're always a work in progress. Um, but I will say, I'm so grateful that I'm at a time in my life where it's really peaceful. It wasn't like that 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There was just a lot of upheaval and difficulties. And had a lot of loss in my life over the last 14 years. A lot, like every other year, practically, a family member or a friend was getting sick and dying. So I've been through a lot of not only my own healing work, but the grief at losing people really close to me and pets. We know how it is when you lose a pet. Um, it's devastating, but now like things are calm, and so I probably do come across as very collected because I've been given this space for the last, I would guess, oh, 3 or 4 years of just being able to be at peace in my home where it's quiet, unless the neighbors are acting up, because I'm in an apartment building. Um, but oh my gosh, I'm just so glad that I'm here, and I have to continue to remind myself that everything that I've been through has not destroyed me. It has actually helped me to build more inner strength.
Thank you for sharing that because when you said earlier you couldn't remember much about your childhood because you sort of blocked it out. I could identify with that because I come from a dysfunctional family as well, and when people talk about their childhood, and they have all these like details of when they were 2 or 3 or 5 or
Yeah,
whatever.
forget it.
I honestly can't recall much. There isn't
I
much that I can remember or want to remember. I literally
Yeah,
blocked out my whole childhood.
I
You know,
understand
uh,
because I did that. That's a great survival mechanism, but I understand because I have also listened to people going, "Oh, yes, we did this and we said that and we had all this stuff." And I'm like, "My God, how do they remember all of that?" It's like I'm just like a blank slate here, in some ways.
yeah. I have learned to sort of like put a blur effect on a lot of my past because I mean like God knows how much I've screwed up or made mistakes, bad choices, and
Yeah,
I'm not the
me
nicest
too.
person. I'm not perfect, so I'm 48 this year,
Mm,
and
you don't look like it. I thought
I
you were younger.
well, hey, back at you, lady. You don't look 69.
Good
you know
lighting.
yes, but it's only honestly in just the last few years, and again you mentioned COVID. I actually love COVID. I have to thank COVID with all my heart
Mhm.
because if it wasn't for COVID and this so-called break from the usual mundane grind, um
Yes.
it's given me opportunity to actually pause and really reflect on my very shitty life. Like what have I done? Nothing much. Do I want to live this way? Not really. You know, and I want a more fulfilling life. And I
Hmm.
realized that one of the things was because of my dysfunctional past. It's like a real dead weight anchor on my
Mm-hmm.
soul. It's
Yeah.
been dragging me, and you know, I realized that I've been bringing a lot of my past, you know, into my present relationships, or you know, with people I deal with,
That's
and
what you
it
do.
sort of really backfires at me, you know, in my face, you know, and
Yeah.
I realized,
Yeah.
oh my, you know, like I'm gonna
We
swear
bring
here
it
a bit,
all
but oh
with
fucking
us.
hell,
We bring
yeah,
it
like
all
fucking
with
hell.
us. Yeah. And it shows up in relationship. Why? Because the other is our mirror.
Yes,
You know,
yeah,
they're reflecting, they're showing us or putting it in our faces where something is not quite lined up within us. And it can be
yeah.
really hard.
It's so hard. I mean, like working on forgiveness, which I am trying every day with my family, with you know whatever. It's it's not easy, and you know you give me hope when you said you've been working on yourself for over 40 years, because I just only just started. So I'm like, okay, I'm okay because it's not that bad because you know I was right. It definitely needs a long, long time, and I just
Yeah. The
started,
good
so I'm gonna
news is
pace
that
myself.
the those of us who have been doing this work for as long as I've been doing it, it's like those who come before us pave the way for us. Um, and I always think, I've paved the way for other people, men and women, but mostly women because they're the ones that show up more for this kind of work and experience. But whatever we do for ourselves to help heal ourselves, we're helping the collective. So I know that every woman and man who have a similar traumatic background to me in some way are being served by my addressing this and healing it. Because we never just do it for ourselves. We don't live in a vacuum. We're not sitting in our own little black hole. So everything we do serves the whole, which when it feels like it's the worst and it's the hardest, sometimes you don't want to think about anybody else. But because I am a server type, and a healer, it's somehow comforting to know that, let's say, all of my ancestors who had similar traumas are really being helped by what I've done because they couldn't do it. Does that make sense? Let's say my grandmother um, had a traumatic background and she had mental health issues and alcoholism and all that. And she had traditional psychiatry, but back then, they were just treating you with drugs and electric shock therapy. So she didn't have access to the kinds of, let's say, light technology that I work with and that is so available to us now. But I know that everything I've done for myself has been helping all the people that came before me because they couldn't do it. They didn't have the same resources. The kind of healing work that I'm involved in, it didn't exist, you know, 50 years ago. It just didn't. So it's really, from that standpoint, this is a wonderful time to be alive if you're open to healing and going inside and finding your own divinity, knowing that it does live there. And the more we can clear, the more we can tap into that.
Mm. So what was, you know, because you've been working on yourself for such a long time, what what was the most, you know, like in your recollection, the most pivotal turnkey unblock that you experienced in your journey of self healing?
Gosh, I don't know that there was just one, honestly, because it's been this continuous movement, this continuous journey with various therapies showing up at the time they were needed. So I don't think there's really been just one thing. Everything depended on how old I was, who was in my path, you know, who my soul called in or who spirit sent to me. There was the perfect, let's say, therapist for that time, whether it is hypnotherapy or hands-on body work. I've done several different types of hands-on work. And I've always found that I think the most powerful work for me is anything where I'm literally touched, because you can access so much through the physical body. It's all stored in our body. You know, there's a saying that the issues are in the tissues. So we can access a lot by certain therapies that are hands-on. You know, I've always found it extremely impactful.
Wow. The issues.
But I can't say there's been just one thing. You know, and it's cumulative. It all builds on what came before it. So you don't do a certain therapy for 6 months and then it's kind of done and you forget about it. I think it's still there. And then when you need to go to the next level, then the next person or people will come in to assist you in that chapter. I feel like I'm just getting this image of like a train, you know, like a little train that's tooting along and it comes into a train station. And you get out and you do whatever you need to do in that little town. And then when you're done there, you get back on the train and then you travel down to the next train station and get off there. So it's like each one of those departure points has another gift in it where you get to experience something new. And it's not more or less valid necessarily. It's just different. But it's all contributing to this journey that we call our life, you know, and our healing journey, our awakening, you know, our ascension, whatever we want to call it.
So, okay, let me ask this question again. When did you realize you needed help or you needed to heal yourself?
Oh, I realized it very clearly when I was 17, 18, when I actually was thinking a lot about suicide, a lot, because things at home were just so bad. But again, I put a lot of it in that box that got stored away in a closet somewhere. So I don't have all the details, but I know that it was a significantly traumatizing time in my life. And I was deeply depressed, deeply. And when I was that 17-year-old girl in deep depression, I didn't know about self-healing or, you know, I just knew, because I think my guides were with me and kind of helping me through that whole time period. I just knew that if I didn't get help, I could kill myself because I didn't have any other resources. There was nobody in the family that was paying enough attention or wanted to see. You know, it was just, talk about dysfunctional. It was just so messed up. There was nobody on board. So if I wasn't going to do it for me, it wasn't going to happen. So I went to, because I was in Catholic high school, we had a group of 3 seminarians from the local seminary. They were in training to be priests, you know, and they taught our religion classes. And after I graduated, I went to see one of them and said, look, I don't know where to go or what to do, but I need something. And so he did some research and he got me the name of a downtown community health agency where I started to go. And that's when really the whole, I think the lid came off, because I then had a therapist and, you know, weekly sessions and whatever that all entailed. But I think that was like when you pick the scab off of a sore, you know, on your arm and it's raw. And, you know, it's not easy to do that. So I look back and I go, wow, you know, I really had some strength there to put myself in that position. Because I'll tell you, when I first went to the agency, the community health place, I was sitting out in the waiting room. There I am, like 17, 18 years old, and I'm hearing some young woman like screaming in a back room. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what am I doing here? It was amazing. I was too well trained to just get up and walk out. It was like, you're going to see this through, but it was kind of scary, and I put myself out there, and I'm glad I did, because here I am.
It it's truly strength of character at such a young age that your survival instinct kicked in, that somehow your subconscious, or you knew deep down inside that if you didn't change something or did something, something bad was going to happen to you, you know
Yeah.
and
And I think my soul was like, listen, you're here to develop your spiritual gifts and to do healing. That's why you're here. So you're not going to bump yourself off. That's not allowed. So we're going to put people in your path who can help get you started. And that's what happened. I needed to
wow,
be here for this time.
wow.
If I had done that, I would not have been fulfilling my soul contract to be here at this time.
That's amazing, because for me, even to this day, I find it hard to trust a total stranger, a therapist, to be able to open up and share. I've tried a few times, but it's difficult. I There's this wall that I have,
Mm-hmm.
that prevents me from opening up to a total stranger like that. You know, very suspicious that I am, and
Mm-hmm.
very skeptical. So I found more inner work seems to help me
Mm-hmm.
release certain, like blocks, and yeah. But I find that very interesting that you were so young as a teenager, actively looking for a therapist. You know.
Yeah, and I didn't know what inner work was. That wasn't a thing. I also know about myself, in case you can't tell, I like to talk with people. I like this back and forth with another person. And I did get started in therapy with a woman, which was very important. Had it been a man, it may not have worked at all. Um, but it was a wonderful woman who was very helpful, and I did not feel threatened. So yeah, for me, I have found, not everybody's like this, of course, that I get much more out of dialoguing with people and just being in this loop of conversation. And it's very enlightening. And I've always seemed to need to talk things out, which helps me to get inspired and to come to greater understanding about why things the way they were. If I can talk through something, I just need to hear it come out. And then it's like, oh, I have more aha moments when I have that reflection from the other person, or the probing questions. So that's what works for me and has always worked for me. And I realize it's not everybody's thing, but also to be in a safe space where you're given the opportunity to have somebody spend an hour with you, and they have to be there for you, you know? And I had never had that before. So that was really nice.
Mm. So, you started with conventional therapy in that sense, correct?
That's all we
So
had. Yeah.
yeah. So when did you start going to the woo woo side, as they call it?
The
You
woo
know,
woo side, the other side.
yeah,
Well, that would have been
yeah.
in the early
I
1980s
see.
when I came upon that bookshop.
So
It was
that's
called the
when you started.
Avant Garde Bookstore and Study
Wow,
Center.
wow. And that's when this whole sort of alternate world opened up with all its
Exactly.
options.
Exactly. And at that point, I don't think I had done any therapy for quite a while. You know, I'd sort of done all the talk therapy and gotten myself to a point where I could be functional in a day job and go about my life, you know, and be in music and, you know, have a pretty normal life that way. Um, but this was the next phase, you know, this was my soul or my spirit, the greater spirit popping in and going, here you go, here's your next chapter. This little point called the Avant-Garde bookstore is right here for you. And it was within walking distance of my job, you know, it was perfect. So that's when the tide really turned.
So, of all the modalities that you've learned, you know, um, which ones resonate with you deeply?
My whole purpose is in helping people to get in touch with blockages and complexes that come that are like it, you know, part of their soul experience that come from other lifetimes. I think I mentioned to you earlier that when I was 16, I read a book on reincarnation, and I just was blown away by this. And then when I went to Avant-Garde, there happened to be someone very talented who was a past life therapist. And I was like, I am in. I did the whole training and started working with it because it's it's incredibly fascinating to me what people's beings have been through. And obviously I have a belief that we have lived many times, because the soul is energy and it doesn't die, you know, it just changes forms. Um, so we have a lot of issues that we carry due to trauma and conditioning, you know, and also we've taken vows at certain times. You know, like if let's just say I was a nun in another lifetime, and you have to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So that stuff lives in us. It's like that's part of our Akashic record, you might say, which is where it's like the library that holds all knowledge of our all of our soul's experiences. And so for me, I've been so fascinated in how that has played out with people and how it continues to play out today, you know, because somebody may keep repeating certain patterns in this life, and there's no logic for why it should be that way. Like, why do I always attract the same kind of person to be in love with? What, you know, because it's not good, it hasn't been good, and why do I keep doing that? And so when I work with people through this light hypnotic state and through my own channeling ability, we get information about where there may have been some trauma or some expectation in another time that that's the life you were supposed to live. But then the person comes into this lifetime and they're still doing it and wondering why. So when I work with somebody, we help to identify that kind of material. And then I do healing work around it, which helps to free them up, which gives them choice. It's like, oh, I don't need to do that anymore. And I'm changing my inner being to such an extent that I'm at a different vibrational frequency, which then means I shouldn't have to keep attracting that old stuff because I'm changing the story now. First, I understand that there was a story. And now we've done the healing work, and I understand that I can create a new story. I have choice, I have understanding, and I can forgive myself for having gone through those experiences. You know, my soul is constantly wanting to learn and evolve. And so we just do this journey, clear this stuff out. You know, it involves tremendously interesting past life material and gives great understanding. So that's been my thing. That's been the constant past life work, channeling, bringing in information from higher sources, and healing. That's what it is for me. And it's all about freeing up our souls to bring in more light and thus be open to having more joy in our life. The guides keep saying it's time for you to find joy. And that means that we have to often get rid of a lot of programs that tell us it's not okay, or we don't deserve it, or it'll never happen to me. All of those old things that just are old and outdated.
Wow.
So that was a long answer. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So, but also, which leads me to another question is how or how did you, how were you able to unlock your spiritual doorway, or I don't know what they call it, for you to be able to, channel, speak to your guides. I mean, like they call it, I don't know, the third eye, or I don't know what it's called. What's the proper term
Right.
for it? You know.
Well, again, I think that's part of my soul's program is to be able to do that. And so the talent was already there, but I had to come to a point where I recognized that I did have that. And so that started in the early 1980s when I would meditate. So I would be just sitting in my chair meditating, and my head started to move. Like I noticed that without my doing anything, it just started to move back and forth and up and down. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about. I just went with it. And, I would write in a journal and just let things come through. But I didn't really even know what channeling was. I mean, I kind of did. I think I read a book on it called Seth Speaks by Jane Roberts way, way back, I think before this happened to me. So yes, I did know what channeling was. Never thought I was going to do it. So I went through that period of meditation and my head moving and okay. And then one night, you'll love this, I had a dream. And in the dream, there was a woman with long platinum blonde hair dressed in like priest robes, and she was processing behind all these monks with like white monk hair. They all had white platinum blonde hair and a monk haircut, with the bald pate. And they were just processing in this church. It was very real, and I'll never forget it. So I woke up going, wow, that's so interesting. Well, shortly after that, I got an invitation to go to hear a woman channeler who had just moved to Maryland from Hawaii or someplace. So I go out with friends to this place about 45 minutes away, and the woman comes in. She was the woman in my dream, and she was a channeler. So see, there was spirit going, you have to go see her. You'll understand. And when I realized that was who it was, and I was being told I needed to connect with her, I went up to her afterwards. I got an appointment for a session, and I started I took a tarot reading class with her and some meditation. I did various things with her, but that was spirit leading me to my next teacher. And she was the channeler, and I got to open up. And sometimes you just have to be in the same place physically as another channel, because their energy acts as something to stir up your own energy, your awakening. It's like a trigger. It's like a trigger point for me to go poing, open up the crown chakra, open up the throat, get everything cleared out. And that's when the channeling started.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Wow.
It was so much fun. That's what's so cool about this too, is it's fun. It's exciting and interesting. It's like, the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour.
Oh wow. And you've
Yeah.
always looked at it as a fun adventure for you.
Oh, yes. And very rewarding. And well, it makes my soul happy, makes my soul sing because in this work and in these times, I've been connecting with my soul's path for me, my soul's desire for what we were going to live out in this particular life expression.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing because I grew up in such a way that I used to have still working through it, limiting beliefs and, my left brain and my right brain kind of thing. So I tend to rely a lot, I think, on my default mode sometimes on my left brain for survival
Mm-hmm.
instinct, you
Sure.
know. So
Makes sense.
learning, so right now, because of COVID, I mean, I'm learning, to trust and go deeper into my spiritual journey, my work to
Mm-hmm.
learn, as I call it, to unfuck myself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's like really like trying to put the ego and the left brain quieted down
Yes.
and
Yes.
to to allow, you know the, I don't know what you want to call it, I don't know, the spirit in me, or the,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your higher self, your
yeah,
soul.
the higher self, yeah, to come forward and guide me more. It's a
Yeah.
real struggle for me because I've survived all these years, um in a left brain survival instinct mode. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's only like I said, I'm a little amoeba compared to you in my journey of self healing. So only in the last, honestly, the last 2 or 3 years, COVID time, that I really started to invest more and like look deeply within my, and it's so not easy. It's not nice to look at myself.
Well, we do have to do a lot of self
Uh,
forgiveness,
yeah,
and I still
yeah.
do it. I don't know what's been going on, but it seems like every morning when I wake up, I start remembering things that have happened that I'm not proud of, like mistakes that I judge myself for, and we've all done them,
Mm,
whatever it is. And I go, oh my God, I'd forgotten all about that. Why is that springing up now? And it's like, because it's something I think that I've been holding on to where there's shame, or still some anger, or there's forgiveness that's still needed, mostly for myself, because part of the journey, I mean, when you've had a lot of trauma, we tend to act out in ways maybe that don't show our best selves because it's about survival. And now I'm at a point where I can look at that and go, oh my gosh, I understand now why I did that. Um, and I wish I didn't remember that I did that, but I need to forgive myself for that because I'm human. I'm human. I have this very spiritual side, and I do have talent as a healer and a channeler. That's who I am. And I've had a lot of stuff in this life, that represents the part of me that, I've been maybe embarrassed about. I think, oh my gosh, but it's all about self-acceptance and forgiveness because we're here on a journey. And if we were going to be perfect and do everything absolutely beautifully and right, why would we be here? What would be the point?
yeah, yeah,
Because Earth really does provide a lot of opportunities to get our lessons in, whatever those lessons are for us as individuals.
yeah. I think if 5 years ago, um, or even 3 or 4 years ago, you know, if you ask me, I would say like, yeah, my past really fucked me up, and then there's so much anger and resentment, and I'm working through it still. But now I look at my past more as in, if it didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be here where I am today to
Right.
help me recognize, and start my healing journey. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like all that crap really did happen for a reason, because it makes me more appreciative of what I have, more
Yes.
grateful.
Yes.
Really, really, like, I feel so grateful now every day, you know, um, for
And
the
that's
tiniest,
advanced
tiniest
thinking.
things.
But
Yeah.
that's really an advanced way of looking at your life, because a lot of people don't get there. They continue to blame others,
Mm,
for
yeah.
what has happened to them. They don't take any personal responsibility and don't think they can change. So for you, no matter how old you are, to be looking at all of that, doing your own self assessment and realizing that every single thing you went through is what has made you who you are and has brought you to this point of going, okay, so what's next? I know I have a higher power and I'm here for a reason. So,
Mm,
you know, help me get there. Show me the next space that I can move into that will further my spiritual journey and
mm,
perhaps open up a whole new way of being that is peaceful or gives you more peace, and just an inkling of deep joy. And
mm,
maybe different types of relationships will start to filter in.
yeah. No, it's yeah. I'm really enjoying this conversation we're having, by the way. I feel very blessed,
Me
truly, truly
too.
blessed, you
Me
know,
too.
um, because you are helping me really, look at a lot of things, with more clarity, you know. Like, I know it's not easy doing forgiveness and, all that crap, letting go, but at least I have, hope, that it's doable, because you've done it and you're in a much more peaceful place, as you say you are now, compared to before, you know. It You inspire me in that sense, saying like, okay, I just started, so I'm still very young in my journey, but I will get there, looking at
You'll
you
get there
you know
faster than I did, probably. Um, But when I look back and I think, gosh, to see how I started as that 17-year-old who said, I think I need to go to therapy or I'm going to kill myself, to where I am now as a healer and a spiritual teacher and a channeler. It's like, oh my gosh, you're giving me a chance to look at this with different eyes right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's where I started. And the journey was really long and bumpy, very bumpy. I really do think that when you make the decision to do your inner work and face your demons, it's pretty rocky. And
Mm.
it's not for the faint of heart. It will challenge you.
Yeah.
It's like it's an initiation into a higher way of being. When you do it and you cross the Rubicon, whatever that means, people say, when you cross that thing, it's like, oh my gosh, you can breathe easier and it pays off. It pays off in so many ways. And it
I
doesn't pay
love
off
the fact.
necessarily in, finances or things like that. Am I rich
Yeah.
now? No, I'm not rich in terms of money, but I'm super rich in terms of what I've accumulated in terms of my spiritual gifts
Mm.
and growth.
Yeah. No, I can see that abundance in you, that light, that what you have right now is
Mm-hmm.
something that I aspire to. It's like, oh man, what Joanne has is like, if I can get there, even half of it, I'll be
If I can do
so
it,
happy.
you can do it. It was
That's
iffy
so
for a
amazing.
while, but I pushed through,
Because
So yeah,
okay, so you said you're 69 and you started your journey about 16, 17. Um, during your very long years on living this earth. how, you know, which were the moments in your life that almost challenged you to, did you ever think of giving up or stopping what you were doing?
I've never ever thought of stopping my spiritual journey. I've never ever, that's just who I am. It's like breathing, it's what gives me juice and fills me up. So that's always been there. There have been times when it's been much more challenging to do my healing practice for various reasons. Like I had a job 15 years ago that was so difficult, so difficult in terms of a ridiculously full workload and challenging relationships at the workplace. And, I think more I questioned maybe my ability to be successful just personally, but it nothing has ever made me want to give up doing what I love to do. Nothing could get me off of that.
Wow.
That's why I'm
Wow.
here. And I've always known it. And it's just no, it would be like cutting off my right arm if I couldn't do what I do. And so for me, even us having this conversation today, I'm in my work. This is my work. It's not separate from my private sessions where people give me money, or my little groups. It's not. This is all part of the whole. This is me just doing me.
Mm.
And that's why I'm all lit up now, because it's really fun to have this conversation, and I get to be passionate about it and share what it's about for me. And you obviously are appreciating it. So that's even better. If you weren't interested, we wouldn't have been talking this long, I'm sure.
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation, the opportunity that, you've gifted me to give me your time to speak about all this, because I think, everything happens for a reason, and I think, you popping into my life at this point, like today, this time exactly, is exactly what my soul needed to hear.
Clearly.
You know, uh,
Yeah.
because like I said, every day it's always working through a lot of things and struggling, and all these doubts that I have to keep shifting and reminding myself, like that's the past, forget the, like let it go, let it go, let it go, keep looking forward,
Mm-hmm.
trust the universe. Again, like
Yes.
I said, coming from a very dysfunctional family, it's like, it's a challenge to do that, but I'm working through it,
Yeah.
and every day that's why I find like the basic daily routine that I have to do is meditation, journaling, reflection,
Mm-hmm.
to always help ground me and, like bring me back, like collectively, like, okay, this is why I'm doing it, why I'm doing what I'm doing, there
Yes.
is a reason for it. I
Yes.
don't know what's the
Definitely.
final big picture. I mean, like, like I always, appreciate and envy people like you who have a very clear vision of, like who you serve or what's your calling, what are your gifts. But then at the same time, I realized that, well, you've had many years of training to get where you are, to give me this amazing answer, you know. And I'm still, like I said, a little amoeba in my journey. I just started literally, like yesterday kind of thing. And, I don't know what is my calling or my vision. I just know that I'm meant to do something and I'm meant to serve and help others. But the exact detail, I don't know, And I think that's why I love doing my podcast and interviewing people like you, because it helps me get more clarity and more
Mhm.
self reflection as well,
Right.
to like ask like figure out like, okay, where am I going? What's my soul? What's my soul's purpose? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Well, and even more, ask like what really lights me up. If I could do anything, like what brings me joy? What do I feel even the slightest inkling of passion about doing? And so when you get in touch with the quality or the feeling nature within you about what lights me up, then you let the universe, like you're giving a clear message to the universe, this is the feeling that I want. Now bring me the particulars, because the universe has the huge picture that we just don't have in our limited little 3D ego mind, right? So we don't have to figure out all the details. We don't. That's not our job. Our job is to get in touch with that spark. Say, this is how I want to feel. I want to feel this passion. I want to feel lit up. I want to feel joy. And you already know a few things that you enjoy doing. You like working with animals. You love doing the broadcasts. You love interviewing people. So those are some really good pieces right there. You say, you write it down. You write down everything that lights you up, and then ask the universe to bring you the ways that you can utilize this and more. Whatever you haven't thought of, bring it to me. I think the more we can open to communicating outside of this little frame just within ourselves, put our attention out more to the universe and to our guidance system. Even if you don't believe you have guides, pretend you do, or just talk to the universe and say, okay, let's be in a partnership here. Open to being in a partnership with spirit and asking for your partner to lead the way and lead you to the opportunities that are going to show you more about what you can do and who most needs you. Like bring me the people that really need me. That's what I ask for all the time. Bring me the people that I can serve. And then they come in surprising ways when it's time.
that's amazing. I have some friends who, they can, like meditate, or they can see who their guides are. They can describe their guides, or
Mm,
they can visualize. They have like really amazing, this IMAX vision in their head about
that's
things,
amazing.
and I don't, or maybe I do, but I have a block about it because I don't trust myself. I don't know. We'll see. You know.
I don't have that ability to see like that. That's called clairvoyance, clear
Mm,
seeing. That's not my
right.
strongest gift. I will get images when I'm doing sessions with people and I'm channeling stuff. Um, but yeah, like you, I would love to be able to see that clearly, but that's not my strongest gift. I am clairaudient, which is clear hearing, and clairsentient. I'm strong in the feeling senses. So I'll get, the strong inner sense and feeling about something, whether it's right or wrong, or, we get information in different ways. And learning
Right.
what your best mode is really valuable. Because you'll just let what you're not so good at just drop away and focus then on where you are the best, what your strongest sense is. Is it seeing? Is it hearing? Is it feeling? And then start developing that.
Okay. I like what you said. What clairvoyance is like
Clairvoyance,
vision.
vision, yeah, clairaudience, think auditory, that's hearing.
Okay. Okay.
And I think you must have that one because of the way you speak and you listen to other people. That tells me that you have some clairaudient ability. And then there's clairsentience, which
Okay.
is like clear knowing,
Okay.
sensing. Like I can feel when guides come in because I'll just suddenly get like really tingly or get chills or, hot, really hot. And I can feel pressure coming in on me when I am getting ready to do a session, either with a group or with people, like single people, individuals. and I do my invocation and I can feel the energy change in the room. And I feel that intense, heat or body chills coming in. It's like, okay, thank you. You're here.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Yeah,
It's
because I have
exciting.
some friends when they share, they share with me their experiences, and I've got one girlfriend who, she named her guide. She can describe what the guide looks like, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like,
Wow.
wow, that's a superpower, man. Because I don't have that. I really don't have
Yeah.
that. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I just might, I don't know, you know, um, get a feeling. For me, it's usually just a feeling.
Well, there's your
And
clairsentience.
okay, so yeah, so when I listen to my friends who describe these IMAX cinematic visualized, experiences they get when they go into meditation, I'm like, wow, that's amazing because I don't see that. I try, but I don't see that.
I'll get a lot of visions, but I can't say that I don't know if I really see my guides. I mean, I might see a light figure, because a lot of them are just light, like
Right.
angels, they're light. They only take on human characteristics because that's what we understand.
Mm,
They don't have human bodies, they are light beings.
mm,
So, but to make their presence more understandable and available to us, then they will come through with a physical form so that we can recognize them. And you know sometimes it's easier for people to talk to somebody that looks human than to just a light beam.
correct. Yeah, that's right. We always talk about the light, but we never talk about the dark. And it's like that question: is it um, two sides of the same coin, the light and the dark, the yin and the yang? Um,
Well, we have that on this planet because we live in duality here. In the highest realms of the heavens, and spirit, there's no darkness, it's light. We talk about after somebody dies, they transition into the light. The darkness is here. And there may be darkness in like the fourth dimension as we pass through the dimensions on our way out. But when you get far enough, you transition into the light, where that's what it is. It's light and it's love. That's the energy of being in that realm that we would call being with God or being in heaven or whatever. So we leave the darkness in the lower realms. But we live in duality here, the good and the bad, the light and the dark, salt and pepper, you know. So we have those distinctions, but not on the other side when you
mm,
reach those highest realms.
that is good to know. That is
Yes.
that is really good to know because for the longest time, I always felt like everything around me was very dark and murky, you know, and very depressive and negative, for the
Mm-hmm.
longest time. So, now when I'm learning to do all this, sometimes I think like, all this like evil energy or negative energy that people talk about, half the time I think me is on your head because you are projecting a lot of it, you know, um, on yourself and around you, So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think like, well, we could switch that one off if we, understood it, and then we won't feel so dark and heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, the
Yeah.
antidote for working with, if you want to get out of darkness, is to just keep focusing on what's light.
Mm,
Look for ways to enlighten yourself. Like I will watch funny movies if I'm feeling in a down place, and I do go down at times for sure. Um, maybe the news has been especially bad one day. So I try not to, like, I'll just look at little blips of news because I don't want to get so sucked into it that it brings me down and puts me in a negative space. So I'll just get enough, I'll scan enough to just get the gist of it. And there are times when I know, oh my God, you need to go watch a comedy or, put on some really light music and I don't know, dance around the house or something. But sometimes we have to work a little bit to get ourselves into that light space because there are energies that pull us down, and we can choose whether we want to be pulled down or go in the opposite direction and fill our space with fun and humorous things. And laughter is one of the best ways to raise your energy.
Hmm. Yes,
Laughter
I
and
agree.
gratitude. If you do nothing else, then do your gratitude practice and find ways to laugh. You're doing a lot
Mm.
to raise your vibration and connect with spirit.
Thank you for this discussion. It's really like yeah, I think yeah, I think my guides just really needed me to hear this today. I'll
I
be
think
honest, I
so.
didn't know I had no idea, no clue where this conversation would lead us to, you know. So I'm just thinking like, okay, yeah, I think I think I think I know what my guides are trying to tell me here.
Well, before I got on here with you today, I did my own prayer of to my guides asking me to just help me serve you in whatever way you needed and say whatever you needed to hear. Use me. That's what I always say. Just use me. I'm here. Use me for the highest good. So I really think that our conversation is reflective of that prayer.
Well, thank you for saying that prayer for me and for today's session. Um, I really feel very blessed and grateful.
Oh,
It's always I mean like I've known you for well since last year since I joined Harmony Pack, but we've never had this kind of in-depth conversation one on one. This is the first time that I've actually really gotten to know you, and I feel so blessed
yeah.
and grateful that that you're willing to share your story with me today. Um,
Oh,
I
I'm
I'm
so appreciative that you asked me. That's a great honor to be invited.
oh
So
you're a
thank you
beautiful
for inviting
person.
me. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're beautiful. You have a beautiful soul, and you know whatever it is, I thank the universe for you and for what
Mm,
you're doing, and I pray that you keep doing what you're doing to find joy, because you've got this. Like I said, you have a beautiful energy about you that it's very soothing, and I just even just watching you and listening to you, I find it very soothing and um very peaceful,
oh,
very
good.
peaceful.
That's my prayer always to bring that to people. And
Yeah.
in every age has its struggles and challenges, and we're all in it together. And if I can be that for enough people, I'll feel very satisfied. When it comes time for me to leave this earth, I'd like to be able to look back and go, yeah, I did that well. So thank you for sharing that with me.
Well, Joanne Bracken, it was a real honor to spend this well early morning for me and afternoon for you, because um it's yeah, you have taught me a lot today, and I have a
Oh,
lot to actually think about, and this is the kind of conversation that I really appreciate, because
I'm
there's so
open
much to chew
anytime.
on.
Anytime.
Wow.
So honestly, I mean that. If you want more conversations like this, I'd be happy to step in.
Wow. Thank you so much. Bless you.
Thank you, Amorous.
Wow, I'm so thankful and grateful that you took the time to listen to this podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could subscribe, download, rate, review, and share this with others whom you care about that may enjoy it as well. Thank you, and remember to be kind to yourself and others. Have a awesome day, everyone.